Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Strike Force, and here I have for you another debate. This time between Rin Michaelis and TizzyisTizzy. First time meeting. Dang it! I forgot to mute my own browser for the stream.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Hey, and
so
you guys can just call me Neil.
Neil.
Yeah.
All right. This is my first time meeting TizzyisTizzy, aka Neil. And so, anyway, I would like to give this chance for both of you to introduce yourselves before we get to the actual debate. Either one of you want to
Oh yeah,
introduce
that's fine.
yourselves?
My name's Neil, and I'm an asshole on Twitter.
That's it.
Yep.
I guess you're not you're not a real content creator on YouTube or anything.
I am not just an asshole on Twitter.
Oh, okay. Ren, want to introduce yourself?
My name is Rin Michaelis, and I do make videos on YouTube, but I mean, you must know from the creator side is that it's like there's fewer and fewer things we're allowed to say. Actually, that seems to be true everywhere: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I mean, it's kind of like they would suppress videos on guns, and it's kind of like talking about LGBT issues is a very controversial topic that could,
Okay,
yeah.
Ren. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off right there, but let's stick to the introduction of yourself.
Okay.
Not get very long-winded about of what is being censored or restricted on certain internet platforms. But yeah.
uh, okay, I'm Remy Kylis.
All right. Anyway, so before we get into the actual debate, I shall explain the format for everybody here. This is the first time of me hosting a debate with either of these two. Rin might have heard me explain the format before, but I don't think Neil has ever. But anyway, here's how the format will go. Each debater will be able to have an opening statement where they will introduce their own beliefs on a certain circumstance. That being, in this case, I think it's safe to say it's going to be about censorship and free speech and just your freedom of speech on an internet platform in general. Each person will have 5 uninterrupted, non-interjected minutes of them bringing forth their case. Then we'll go into 5 minutes freaking counter arguments, uninterrupted and non-interjected. Then we'll go into 30 minutes of cross-examination. There I'll be more lenient on the interjections, but if there are going to be any complete cutoffs, I will cut them off on that. And there will be no insulting between my two debaters here. The chat, I'm not going to be as stingy as I was during the two plebs versus Lapis debate. Because for one thing, it got kind of wild in there and hard to control. But I would still ask the chat to be nice and fair to my debaters. But I will definitely ask my debaters not to be insulting towards each other or towards the chat. Ignore the chat, in fact, if you have to, if it helps. If either of the two debaters go insulting each other or the chat, they will end up with a strike and then 3 strikes. Once they get up to 3 strikes, the opposing debater will get 5 uninterrupted minutes of arguing. And then after the 30 minutes cross-examination is done, we will get into 40 minutes, 40, 50 minutes, whatever will add up to 2 hours total time of being on this debate of addressing the chat, plus extended cross-examination. And then after we are done with that, once we are getting to close to the end of our 2 hours here, both debaters will have their 5 minutes closing statements, and that'll be the end of the debate. I don't want to make this too long, but let's get started anyways. So, who would like to go first, Ren or Neil?
Well, she's got the positive, so she can go first.
All right. So, Ren, I'm going to start your 5 minutes right about. Okay, are you ready, Ren?
Yeah.
All right, 5 minutes starting now. Go.
Well, I just believe that we should have free speech over the internet. That's pretty much it.
Anything more you want to say about explaining this circumstance or what your arguments are regarding Ralph. I mean, Neil kind of explained to me off air of kind of what this is about, but want to explain anything of that?
Yeah, I was just defending Ralph's freedom of speech. That's it. So I wasn't really defending Ralph as a person. What happened was it seems like after he, lost his YouTube accounts, D Life didn't want him around. He finally found Streamy, and it seemed like there were people who didn't seem to be Streamy users. They didn't seem to use Streamy, but they seemed to wanted to get Ralph off of Stream Me. So I just didn't like that type of censorship because I wouldn't want that to happen to me.
Is that it? Do you yield?
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Okay, that was only like 1 minute out of your 5 minutes used. Okay. I don't know. I guess we'll just go from there with Neil. Okay. Let me cancel that timer, restart the timer. Neil, you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. 5 minutes starting now.
Well, it's pretty simple. Company has a right to free association, just like any other company. I don't think people have to bake the cake. And one of my best examples of this, in fact, is if a Jewish-owned bakery had a neo-Nazi come in and say, make me a swastika cake for 420 for Hitler's birthday, they have every right to say no. They have every right to not have Ralph on the platform. There's no reason for them to say that they have to. And the whole idea of a government enforcing a private business to give somebody a free product is pretty ridiculous. We're not paying customers when you use something like YouTube. We are the product. We are the people that are watching the ads, which is the actual product on YouTube. So this idea that there could be a internet intervention to prevent people from getting kicked off a free platform is pretty ridiculous. Secondly, like the entire point of it just being Ralph is speech has been stifled. He's on stream.me, and people have a right to go to the company and say, this is what he does. It's not even just a speech thing. If you've ever been in his Discord, which I have, it's doxing and harassment and troll campaigns. And those things are, in fact, against terms of service. He didn't break the rules just for saying naughty things. He was taking money, saying anti-Semitic things, and that's against terms of service. A company has a right to enforce the terms of service. We may not agree with it. I don't always agree with YouTube or Google's terms of service, but it is what we agree to when we use this platform. There is no, like Twitter is not a human right. Facebook is not a human right. YouTube is not a human right. You still have the right to speak, and people are not allowed to stop you, but they don't have to give you a megaphone. That's pretty much my opening statement.
All right. So with Neil yielding the floor back to Rin, I guess we will go to her 5 minutes responding statement. Rin, you ready?
Sure.
All right. Wait. Starting now.
I just think it's like really silly. Like if Stream Me wants Ralph on the platform, and then there's like pressure to get him off the platform. To me, it's preventing. To me, freedom of speech is also freedom to listen. So if Stream Me wants Ralph in the platform, and Ralph wants to be in the platform, and you have people who want to listen to Ralph, then it does seem like a push for censorship for people to say, hey, get Ralph off Streaming Me, when they're contacted the company to get a person removed, especially if they don't even use that product.
Was that really it?
I mean, I don't really have like much to say. It's kind of like I just believe that people should have a right to speech, that's pretty much it.
All right. So I guess I will reset the timer for us to go into 30 minutes cross-examination then. Hold on as I crank up the timer. All right. This will be you guys' chance to just openly talk to each other. ask each other any types of questions that you want, make your rebuttals towards each other just off the cuff, no particular time limit on each other's within this 30 minutes. So whoever wants to open up with the cross-examination, 30 minutes are starting right now.
Okay, well, then I guess I'll start. Rin, when you say free speech, how does that apply to a privately owned company?
The way I view it is that I am looking for free speech options and free speech solutions. Like me and other free speech advocates, we're discussing an internet bill of rights. That's one, or to have YouTube labeled a publisher instead of a platform. That's another one. People were looking into a new federal communications act. And another thing, idea, this one was presented by Shiva, is for the U.S. Postal Service should have a public email and also their own payment processor, so that's we could still maintain some freedoms, but for that to be expanded to over the internet.
Yeah, but that still didn't answer my question about a private company. Now, I've watched the interviews with Shiva, and I've looked over his stuff. I put some stuff in the side chat as well. When you say Internet Bill of Rights, do you not mean what everybody else talks about with Internet Bill of Rights? Because that has nothing to do with free speech. It has everything to do with data collection and the right to opt in as opposed to opt out when it comes to data collection. That at the right, it's not a.
It's just, as I said, people looking for solutions to be able to freely express themselves online, where there is just at least a place. It doesn't have to be everywhere. It doesn't have to be YouTube or Twitter, but for there to be a place where people could freely express themselves.
Okay, yeah, and also with the government being a little not great about stuff like free speech, which you might agree with, do you think that the post office would be any better? Do you think that the government would be better about free speech? And what about things like invasion of privacy? And it's bad enough with private companies working with, Homeland Security and the NSA. Don't you think that the government having their own wing, that would just be, it's not even a backdoor at that point. It's just, everything would be monitored. Everything would be recorded. That's not real. That violates constitutional rights as well. This isn't a solution. The post office opening up a Facebook account, a YouTube account, the reason why social media is popular is because people use it. It's not, and the reason why people use it is because they kick people like Ralph off. If you had nothing but trolls and harassers and assholes on it, you wouldn't have Twitter. You wouldn't have Facebook. People might argue and people might call each other names on Twitter, but you don't have a platform that isn't moderated. Without moderation, it becomes useless. It becomes a useless product full of people. Look at Gab. Go look at stream.me now. They're useless products that nobody wants to use. They're not going to grow in their fan base as long as those people are there. And that's why companies like YouTube and Google get rid of them. And it's a private company. They have every right to say, again, you can't go in the middle of a bar and scream obscenities and not expect to be kicked out. You can't go piss on the floor in the middle of a bar and not expect to be kicked out.
I mean, I think you've just proven my point for me. You're saying that these are private companies, so they have the right to kick people out. That's the reason why people were talking about, Shiva mentioned a public email or a public service, because you keep arguing that, yeah, kick Ralph out, kick this person out, kick that person out. You're arguing for multiple people to get kicked off. So of course people are going to look for a place where they could freely express themselves without having to worry about getting kicked off. So
Yep.
You do want people to get kicked off for their offensive speech.
No, what I'm saying is that I don't mind companies kicking people off. It's the right for a company. And secondly, you don't think that there's going to be rules when it comes to a government email? That's a little naive, don't you think?
They would have to give us our constitutional rights to free speech. They would be obligated to extend our constitutional First Amendment protections of free speech over the internet.
Yeah, but why would the government even care? Why would the government want to create a social media?
It is in our Constitution that grants our rights to free speech. That is why the U.S. Postal Service was created, from what I heard.
From Shiva.
It was created to make sure that we keep
Ren, Let's stop the overtalk here, and also Rin, you keep on like cutting off consistently. Neil here, so I would ask to slow down on that.
Yeah, I just again, I want to ask you this question. I want you not to repeat what you've heard, but actually think about it and then give me a response. What would the government do? Why would the government create a social media platform? Why is it in their interest to do so? Who is going to pay for it? And then who regulates it? Because it is going to need regulation, because everything that is online needs some sort of regulation.
It is a demand of the people. Like, there are so many people who are tired of the censorship. Sticks is tired of censorship. Multiple people are tired of being censored online. If you're not aware of that, that's your problem, not mine.
Well, Styx is not being censored. When has he ever been flagged?
Actually, he did have one of his videos flagged. He had to have it repealed. And also,
Was it
people are
repealed?
very. Also, allow me to finish. Also, people are very careful for what they say on YouTube because so many things are against the rules. Even progressives have gotten their channel flagged. Vadim Newquist have gotten 2 copyright strikes on his channel. ContraPoints had a video responding to neo-Nazis that got taken down. Multiple people on both sides have experienced censorship on YouTube.
Yeah. I'm not arguing with you that it's a problem, especially the flagging system, right? And also, a copyright strike has nothing to do with freedom of speech. That's you taking somebody else's content, putting it on your channel without their permission. That has nothing to do with freedom of speech. That has.
I meant to say community
Rin.
guideline strike. I meant to say community guideline strike.
Okay, well, even then, okay. Like I said, I don't want to argue if YouTube is censoring people. What I want to say is, does YouTube have a right to? And the answer is yes. The answer is they are a private company. They can create their own terms of service. They own every single property, including the domain. If people want to have a quote unquote freedom of speech platform, they can. But the problem is, whenever somebody starts one of those platforms, 2 things. A, there's nobody on it, so nobody's going to go on there. And B, they're just going to end up like Gab and Stream.me, which is just filled with people like Ralph and the far right. We're just going to put up Murdoch cartoons, talk about killing Jews, and that's not good for business. You're never going to grow as a business because one investor is going to look at that and go, yeah, no thanks. And your answer about, well, the Postal Service is going to give us free speech. The Postal Service is not an internet company. Now, you can say that we could create a new thing like the Postal Service for the internet. Yeah, but I don't think there's a demand for it. Just because a couple people on the internet think it's a good idea does not mean the majority of Americans will care.
Yeah, but so many people are complaining about censorship, including PewDiePie, including Philip DeFranco. It's a widespread problem that multiple, it's not like a small section of YouTubers are complaining about it. Even YouTubers with millions of subscribers, PewDiePie, Philip DeFranco, are complaining about censorship on the platform. So yes, I do think that eventually there's going to be much of a demand there for a place where people can speak freely.
Yeah, but PewDiePie, let me respond to that. PewDiePie wouldn't even be under that. He's a guy living in the UK from what, Sweden? How this is the other part. How does it even work? How would they work on a global scale? The internet is an international thing, right? It's not just one company. It's everybody from around the world communicating. How would the U.S. government give free speech to a foreign national?
They can't, but they could give free speech to us.
But we already have free speech. You have free speech. You have every right, but it doesn't mean that you're entitled to a platform. Nobody's entitled to a platform. The company chooses who uses their product. Again, the only way that you might have an argument here is if you are paying for it. You're not. You're not paying for it. You're using their service for free. There's a thing in tech. If it's free, you are the product. Understand that. You are the product. You are the eyeballs to look at the ads. That is the entire reason why you're on here. And it's a cool platform. I agree. It's awesome to use it. But again, Twitter's not a human right. YouTube's not a human right. That doesn't stop you from having the ability to speak. It just doesn't allow you to be on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube.
like I said, I'm not arguing to be on Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube. I'm arguing that we have a free speech platform somewhere that can't be taken away from us. And you keep straw manning me to make it about Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube when that's not my argument. My argument is that there should be some place where we could speak our mind without fear of being censored.
Well, okay, I'm not straw manning you. You brought up PewDiePie. You brought up Philip DeFranco. Which platform are they on?
Yeah, I brought them up because they're complaining about censorship. You're acting like only a few teeny tiny amount of people are complaining about
That's two
censorship.
people.
When I've
What?
do I need to go down the list of each and every single person who complained about censorship?
No, what I'm saying is that it's not outside of your little world of the internet. What you watch, your little corner of the internet, most people don't care about this issue because they don't get flagged off Twitter. They don't get kicked off Facebook because they're not doing stuff like saying kill the Jews. When you're saying that you're next, no, you're not. YouTube is not going to come after your channel. And if they do, yeah, I agree. That sucks. And I think that we have a right to say to the company, hey, we don't like this. And that's us using our free speech and complaining to the company. Just in the same way, if somebody sees what Ralph does, including the number one streamer that used to be on Stream.me, when she left because she kept getting trolled by Ralph's fans, because she kept getting the same kind of hateful stuff. Again, I don't care about stuff like that. I laugh about stuff like that. But you know what? Some girly gamer girl is probably not going to want her stream hijacked by a bunch of people harassing her. And that's why you have a TOS. That's why you have a moderation. It makes your product unusable for the rest of the people because you're defending people that are ruining it for everybody else. And again, this isn't a free speech issue. This has nothing to do with the government and has everything to do with a private company deciding who's on there.
I disagree, Dad. I do believe other people can be next. For example, Zach made a video where he used the N-word. He actually said the N-word, and people could go, well, Zach said the N-word. I don't like that. I am going to flag Zach for hate speech. And Zach could get a community guideline strike on the video of which he said the N-word.
FYI, we get a little bit edgy on this channel, but
yeah,
most of the time, whenever I do say the N-word, it's mostly in context, like I'm not being a pussy, like the actual text says nigger, and I'm just not afraid of saying it, reading it verbatim.
And that's fine. I don't have a personal problem with this stuff. And obviously, you could get a community guideline strike. And again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it's up to the decision of Google. It's not up to the decision of you and me. And I agree, the flagging system's stupid because I know people, again, that have made videos that gone after things like the alt-right and neo-Nazis, and magically their stuff gets flagged off overnight. So it does happen, and I agree there is abuse of it, but that's not the government preventing you from speaking. That is not somebody taking away your ability to speak. That's somebody abusing a feature on a private company's platform. That's a good. Go ahead.
And that's what people are complaining about. People are complaining about not being able to speak freely, on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and we don't have to be on these services. We don't have to be on there. But when we do find some place, whether it's Gab, whether it's Stream.me, whatever, we want to be left alone.
Yeah.
Okay. If I may, interject here and ask a question to help forward out this debate a little bit. This is more directed towards Rin, but I guess it's more directed to both of you. Do you think that a privately owned company, in this case being Google and all the sub companies that it owns, aka YouTube, do you think that a private company, internet company, should be allowed to kick people off of their own privately owned platform?
Yes.
Rin?
I mean, I've never really been a fan of freedom of association. Like, I've spoken out against Roaming Millennial when Roaming Millennial says, that person should have an option of whether they bake a cake or not. I am for bake the cake, and I believe that people should, especially when it comes to a monopoly, I do believe that people should be able to, express their free speech.
But freedom of association is part of the First Amendment. It's connected directly to freedom of speech, right? And another part of that too is it. What about the cake? When you brought up bake the cake, right? That you're telling me that guy, he never refused anybody's service. He just refused to make them a custom cake. He offered to sell them anything off the shelf. So that's a very misunderstood case. Two, when you say you're against freedom of association, what do you mean you're against freedom of association?
Made a video on it.
You're roboting.
Yeah, you kind of cut out there, Rin. Hello, Rin? Oh, I think we might have lost our internet connection or something. Here, let me see. I'm gonna pause the timer right there. Rin, we lost you. Sorry about this, everybody. Technical difficulties here. Okay. Looks like she's back. Rin, speak.
Oh yeah, I was having internet problems.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so sorry about that, everybody. I will know that I did not want to do that. 1 second. All right, I'm going to resume the timer. We can continue right now.
So I was asking you, what do you mean you don't like freedom of association?
Well, I don't believe that a gay person should be forced to, go to the states over just for a wedding cake when they could just go to a local baker.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard me. That's not what happened in that case. All he said was that he wouldn't make them a custom cake. He offered to sell them anything off the shelf. So it is a misconception that he denied them service. So he did not break the law. He only broke a state law that was found to be unconstitutional.
I was speaking in general because I was addressing roaming millennial at the time, so I wasn't speaking on any particular specific case.
Well, here's the thing. That is, when you say bake the cake, you're invoking a very specific case. And we know what that means. When you're saying you're against freedom of association, that doesn't make any sense. Part of the First Amendment is freedom of association, freedom of assembly, and freedom of speech, and freedom of the press, right? They're all one thing.
Yeah, but I mean, there are different people with different concepts of free speech. And some of that free speech means that's like some people would want to expand the Constitution or, alter it so that people can say what they want over the internet.
But yeah, okay. First, that's a very small. Again, this is you're taking talking points from other people, and they're not very fleshed out. What you're trying to say is that you want to expand one part of the First Amendment, but you don't want any of the other parts of it. You don't want people to have the right to petition a company. You don't want people to have the right to of companies to act in any way they want. You don't want, but you want people to be able to spam, nigger in the chat. This is kind of my point. It's a ridiculous standard. You do have a right to free speech. If you want to scream obscenities in your own house or even in the public square, that's fine. And that's constitutionally protected. But it doesn't mean that people have to associate with you. And that means companies. Companies don't have to do business with you. People don't have to watch what you're saying. You can't force people to interact with you. And you can't force companies to host you.
Yeah, but I mean, freedom of speech includes freedom to listen. If people are paying Ralph for his content, then they want to evidently hear what he has to say. People should be able to hear what he wants to hear. And if you don't like it, use the block button.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm saying. I just said zero about that. Ralph is allowed to be on stream.me. He's allowed to be on YouTube as long as he doesn't break the rules. As long as he doesn't break the rules, he's more than welcome to be on there. And if he really has people that are willing to pay him, he's already on SoundCloud. He's already on, I think, Zencast. He has other platforms. The difference is that he wants to use the payment process in order to make money. That's not that Ralph could take checks in the mail. Ralph could take, there's a million different options. Nobody's limiting Ralph from doing business. He has his own website. These are options that he could go through, but instead he wants to play the victim. And all he does is go over to another platform. He hasn't been kicked off there. Doesn't look like he's going to. So where's the issue? There isn't an issue. Even if people are saying you should not host this guy, that's their freedom of speech to say that. They have the right to say that to this company. And that company has a right to listen to it, in your words. And I'd like you to really kind of flush out what you mean by right to listen, because I think this is another talking point you've heard, but I don't think you understand what they're trying to say.
Actually, freedom to listen, I mean, that is actually an old concept. And I actually do have like this, I could put this in a side chat, a link from law that's, I cannot pronounce it, but it's like hofustra.edu, where it talks about the heckler's veto cases, where it talks about, freedom to listen. So I'm not repeating the talking points. Here's the link to what I'm talking about.
I already read. Yeah, I already read this, and this doesn't say what you think it says. It's this isn't this is just a journal article about someone's opinion about what they could do about the heckler's veto, and this isn't the heckler's veto. Nobody is stopping Ralph from saying anything. What's going on is he's getting kicked off a platform. That's not the same thing. Nobody is. This isn't a person going into the middle of a town square and getting on their soapbox and saying something, and a bunch of people coming over and literally screaming them out or beating them up. Right? This is a company deciding on their own. Hey, we're listening to these people over here. Maybe that we shouldn't have this person on. There's not the heckler's veto.
And this is where you're inconsistent. You're inconsistent because you're saying the company is deciding on their own. But earlier you were saying that it's okay for people to tell a company to get rid of a user.
Yeah, no, it's both, and both are okay.
By the way, if I may say here, whatever links to articles that you guys have in the side chat, I will put in the for links for them down in the description box. Just FYI.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, so you are contradicting yourself, because then it's not the company's decision, it is other people trying to get the company to remove a specific user.
No. That is a company deciding to get rid of the user, even if they listen to other people. That doesn't make any sense.
It's not strictly the company's decision because they didn't think of it all on their own.
So? If you suggest a flavor to Pepsi for a new kind of Pepsi, and the company goes, oh, you know what? Vanilla lime Pepsi would be a really good idea. Is that a bad thing?
Now you're saying, now you're switching it to opinion. I'm saying that they're not doing this all on their own. It's not something where they saw Ralph's content on their own. They are being pressured to do a certain action. There's a difference between being pressured to engage a certain action, and there's a difference between that and doing an action independently.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. First off, how do you know that they weren't aware of what Ralph was doing? Two, that's why they have the system. Though I agree, again, I will say it for the fifth time tonight, the flagging system is definitely abused. The flagging system is not perfect, but that's why they have a flagging system. Is so that when people break the terms of service, they can be alerted. They can't watch. What is it? Are you how many minutes per hour? Or how many hours worth of content are loaded every hour on YouTube? It's ludicrous amount. Do you think that YouTube's going to be able to go through all of it? No, of course they're going to listen to other people. The company wouldn't function otherwise. Are you saying that people can't say, hey, I found some child pornography, maybe you guys should flag this down? That's a good thing.
Well, that's also against U.S. law. I mean, but child pornography is, it's legal in like all 50 states, whereas free speech is protected under the Constitution.
Yeah, but it's not free speech again, this is not a free speech issue. This is a platform. This is not
well,
the
you
public
believe
square.
you just believe that the company should do whatever it wants. So,
Yes.
okay, wait a minute. So, another thing that is against the Constitution is slavery. So, could a company own slaves?
Oh boy.
That doesn't that's not even an argument. First off, that slavery is illegal because we have labor laws and it's unconstitutional, right? That has nothing to do with it because you're violating somebody's individual personal rights when you make them a slave. But when somebody kicks you off Twitter, that is not violating your rights. That all that is doing is not letting you use their platform. Again,
free speech is the right.
Yes, and they still have their free speech, even if they're not on Twitter. That's the point. The company, at the end of the day, decides who uses their free product.
Well, why can't the company decide who's a slave and who's not a slave?
Because that is a ridiculous argument, and you should be ashamed of yourself for even bringing that up. It's not even comparable.
Let's tone down a little bit the condescension.
Amendments. So why can't we just have the right to free speech? Because that is a right that we have. And we are talking about the Constitution. The Constitution forbids slavery, and the Constitution also protects the right to freedom of speech. If a company could decide which Constitution it follows, then what's wrong with having slavery if a company could do whatever it wants?
Because a company doesn't violate your rights when they don't let you use their free platform. There is a difference between that and them using slave labor.
No, we have a right to free speech, though.
Yeah, but free speech does not entail the internet.
I'd like to say that we're a little bit less than 5 minutes, then we'll go to addressing the chat. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, again, you're conflating two things that have nothing to do with each other, right? Slavery is illegal because it in itself violates people's personal rights. Somebody getting kicked off of a platform does not stop them from being able to speak. If you're saying that Twitter, do you want the government to regulate Twitter? Do you want the government to regulate Facebook? Do you want the government to regulate? Because do you think it's going to get better or worse with censorship if you have the government involved? Because
well, censorship is already bad. You can't talk. I mean, Sackett cannot say the N-word, or if he does, I mean, somebody could report him saying the N-word, and they could get him off Twitter. They could get him off YouTube. He can't say faggots. He's not really supposed to do it. If he says it, it doesn't matter about the context. He'll get kicked off Twitter. He'll get kicked off YouTube because all a person has to do is time it just right, and they could get rid of them. Free speech is already an issue, and when people do try to go somewhere else, when people try to go to Gab or Streamy, they're happy. They just want to be left alone, just for people to follow them there and try to get them off these alternatives.
Okay, again, it's not a free speech issue. It is. Does a company have a right to let somebody use their free product? Right? Does a company have a right to say...
Company have a right to own slaves.
No, it's not the same argument. Again, slavery in itself...
Whoa. Let Neil finish his point, Rin.
Slavery in itself is a violation of human rights. Therefore, there can't be slavery anywhere. A company has a product. That is not the public square. That is owned by the company. It is their product, and they can choose who uses it. This isn't a free speech issue.
All right, Rin, go respond.
Free speech is a right, just like you have a right not to be a slave. Free speech is also a right. And you can't just say which, constitutions you follow and which constitutions you don't follow. You can't just go, well, a company cannot have slaves because that's against the Constitution. But it's like, oh, yeah, but, a company could deny the constitutional right to free speech.
But they're not denying your constitutional right. Again, I will say it the 6th time. It does not matter what it is. Their product. It is their platform. They choose who uses it. It is not a violation of your First Amendment rights not to have a Twitter.
Yeah, but people want to just be somewhere, and when they do try to get adjusted at Steamy, and when they do try to get adjusted at Gap, there are people who don't even use the products who still try to get people get kicked off. or they just go to GoDaddy.com, they would go to Discuss, they go to the domain name, they would go to PayPal, they would go to the payment processors to make sure that we cannot enjoy these alternatives.
Yep, and that's their right to go to those companies and petition them. And it is the
That
right
means that Ralph is being silenced.
No, Ralph is being kicked off private companies' platforms because they don't want him because he is bad for business.
Yeah, but to a loud minority.
He's not a minority. I mean, if you think he's no, I don't mean that he's like black. What I'm saying is that he's not a oppressed minority because he can't use his Twitter account, or he can't use YouTube, or he can't use or other companies decide not to do business with him. Again, he has his own website. He has his own forum. He could always find another company, which he has found companies that want to work with him. And that's fine.
Well, 30 seconds.
Well, look at Alex Jones. Alex Jones got kicked off YouTube and he tries to readjust. But what happens is people did attack his personal websites. People tried to get Alex Jones, deplatformed from his own websites.
No.
So the idea that you could just go to your own little website, that's not technically true. And yes,
absolutely.
Wait, Neil. I'm gonna let Rin. I'm gonna let Rin finish her statement, and then we are going to get to addressing the chat. Ren, as you were saying.
Well, yeah, when it comes to Alex Jones, he got kicked off YouTube, and he does have his own website, and people started attacking his website, and people tried to, like how there's like the host, like GoDaddy.com or Discuss. There are people who tried to get him deplatformed from his own websites to put him in a position where he has to look for a new domain registrar.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm gonna cut right there.
Yeah.
So I got a lot from the chat to address, mostly from Common Sense Guy and Marianne and Kappa Kitty. This one more thing that actually no, I'm going to read the very first chat comment right here. Actually, no, I'm going to no, never mind. We'll just go to addressing the chat and extended cross-examination until about 9:20. Then we will go to closing statement. So anyway, the first chat comment here is from the Liberal Sanity Project. He asks, he says, "I'm only here to ask Rin why she hates free speech." I'm going to say, right off the bat, that almost seems like a bit of a straw man, in my opinion. But Rin, I'll let you address that in full.
Well, why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't you what?
Hate free speech. I mean, that's what my content is all about, really. I mean, each and every single day on YouTube, I just make videos about how to get people censored off the platform.
Why would you not hate free speech, or why would you hate free speech?
Oh, I hate free speech so much.
Is that sarcasm right there?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So to sum up Liberal Sanity Project's framing of his question, that's kind of a straw man, the way that he implies that you hate free speech.
Okay. Let me explain. I actually know where he's going. He's a buddy of mine. What he's trying to say is that she doesn't want other people to be able to petition other companies to use their free speech to argue that somebody should be deplatformed.
All right. So next chat comment here, and for some reason from somebody's end, I'm getting a whole bunch of reverb. Common Sense Guy. Okay, most of this is going to be addressed to you, Ren, because I'm sorry to say, but a whole lot of the chat kind of disagrees more with your position. But Common Sense Guy says, but they don't have a right to platform. To a platform, I think is what he meant to say.
And that's what people who are like me and Tommy and States were looking for, what we could do, a platform where we could go that's it's not going to hinder us from saying what we want.
Then yeah, well, my rebuttal to that is A, start your own company. B, yes, there are people who are willing to work with it. You brought up GoDaddy, and I think this kind of ties in. GoDaddy also has a right for their domain, but that's just a domain registry. There are tons of domain registries across the world that anybody can use. Nobody's being prevented. Companies have a right to say, I don't want to platform you. I don't want to do business with you. A Jewish baker has a right to say, I don't want to make a Nazi cake.
That would also mean that's, that's a Christian baker could say, I don't want to make a gay wedding cake. You do realize that, don't you?
Yes, and I agree with them. And
Okay. Neil, I'm going to cut you off right there because we got a whole bunch more to address in the chat. Common Sense Guy also says, he's got a lot to say. He says, the Constitution doesn't give you a right to a platform. It gives you the right to speak, not the right to a platform. This might be like him repeating the same thing and just rewording it in different ways. Rin, you want to address that?
Yeah, I mean, we freedom of speech is, of course, includes freedom from speech. But if you want to not to hear somebody, there's the block button. There's nothing stopping people from blocking me, blocking Ralph, blocking anybody that they don't want anything to do with.
Yeah, and may I respond to that real quick?
Yes.
But again, when does the rights of the company come in? When do they have the right to say this is bad for our bottom line? They have a legal responsibility to their shareholders to make sure that their company is profitable. And when you say, wait, there's a block button, what about their block button? Why can't they say, you know what, we don't want this on our platform? It's unreasonable to say that a company can't have values, that a company can't say this is what our company stands for, and you know what, we don't want anti-Semitism. Or maybe they do. What about Gab that says that they can have whatever they want? That's fine. But that's the company's decision. And if it hurts their bottom line and they decide that this is hurting their bottom line, there's nothing in the Constitution that protects you from a company saying, we don't want to do business with you.
Yeah, but then the problem is when we do go to Gab or when we do go to streaming, there are activists that goes after the payment processors. They go after the domain registrars. They do everything that they could. So it's like even when there's a website that's like we want, people to say whatever they want, activists would target the domain registrars and they would use the payment processors as a way to silence other people from the internet.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so I will. Sorry, Neil. I'm giving Rin a little bit more floor time because the chat is more biased against her. The questions are being more directed towards her.
Yeah,
so we give her a chance to respond to each individual chat. You respond to her point, then she responds back to your point, and so on and so forth. Once we get through all these chat comments, though, I think we'll go back to a little bit more extended cross-examination. But anyway. All right. And so Common Sense Guy says here something that's kind of an extension of what was said earlier. Rin said that she wants a platform where people can say anything that they want. She doesn't want a certain specific platform, not specifically YouTube or specifically Twitter or anything like that. She just wants a platform that permits free speech absolutism. Absolutism is what I am getting from that. And then you say, Neil, well, then they should, then you should start your own internet website. And so Common Sense Guy, in expanding of that, then they should make their own platform. They use this one and must follow rules and use the systems in place. Rin?
Yeah, that's what people try to do, but then, people would go after the domain registrars. People would go after GoDaddy to make sure or go after, what's it, Discuss. They would go after the payment processors like PayPal and make sure that, and people do create their own websites, they're still being targeted. They are still being targeted, and because they have speech that people don't like. So they're still being targeted other ways to make sure that speech that others don't like is getting suppressed and unheard.
All right, I've got one very ironic point to point out. Do you know who started Stripe? You know who Stripe is?
I've heard of Stripe.
Yeah. I honestly don't know.
Stripe is I think 90% of the payment processing on the internet. It was started by 2 high school students, the 2 youngest billionaires in the world. This idea that people can't start their own companies is ridiculous. They did it, and they have a right to process whosever payments they want. There are other options as well. This idea that you can't just start your own company is bullshit. These people are just unable to because they're not equipped to do so. That's not anyone's fault but their own.
You said 2 young billionaires, so
The
these
2
people are
youngest
already
billionaires.
rich?
No, they became rich because of Stripe. They were just they were high school students. They started Stripe. They had nothing. They started from nothing. They started a company on their own, and they started Stripe, which is the #1 payment processor on the internet. It is because that's the entire point. This argument that people can't start their own company is ridiculous. Ralph already did, and that's the irony of it. Ralph already did start his website. He does it for victim bucks. He does it to make himself more relevant. That's it.
When has
All right,
Ralph
all right, all right.
played
So,
victim?
Neil, I'm going to cut you off and let Rin respond, and we'll go on more with the chat.
When has Ralph ever played the victim?
Okay, well, never mind. She asked you a question, so go ahead, Neil.
All right. He does it all the time. It's, oh, look at me. I got kicked off YouTube. Of course you got kicked off YouTube. You violated the terms of speech, not terms of service. You also violated the fact that he was ban evading, right? He had strikes on his channel and was using other channels to stream his show. That is against the terms of service. That has nothing to do with freedom of speech. So this idea that Ralph was kicked off because he was just a good boy and he didn't do nothing is ridiculous. He constantly harasses people using his audience, including using his Discord. He violates every form of the terms of service. And then he gets people like you to defend him for his freedom of speech. His speech has never been silenced. He still does the kill stream. He still has every single, this idea is ridiculous. He still makes money, not as much, but that's because companies don't want to do business with him. They don't want to make money. These companies don't want to make money. They don't want to make the Nazi cake, right? They don't want to make money off somebody sending a super chat saying, gas the kikes 1488. Sorry, they don't have to. They don't have to take that money.
Do you have any evidence to back up your claims? You made a lot of claims. Do you have evidence to back up each and every one of them?
Yeah, actually I do. If you really want to watch the heel stream, you can go ahead and see. You can go watch it. The Wall Street Journal article is exactly what it was about. It was about super chats and them sending super chats that have anti-Semitic things. They talk about killing Jews in their chats, and Ralph reads them out loud.
Yeah, but he's just reading the super chats. It's kind of like, this goes back to, you do realize that Zach could get a community guideline strike for each and every time he used the N-word and each and every time he said faggots. You do realize that Zach himself, who's hosting this debate, can receive community guideline strikes on his channel to get him kicked off the platform. Just like how Vadim Nyquist, you probably don't know this, but he actually had 2 community guideline strikes on his channel. And if I recall correctly, there was a time when Music Man Mike, or Michael Rollins, he also had 2 community guideline strikes on his channel at one point.
Yeah, again, that's irrelevant. It's a relevant point because
No, I do think it is relevant because people cannot sort of. No, I believe it's relevant because obviously this company cannot tell the difference between something genuinely hateful and satire. Because when it comes to Vadim Nyquist, he would get in trouble for satire because they cannot tell the difference between a genuinely hateful statement and somebody mocking a genuinely racist statement.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, 1 second. We have to get ourselves back up to speed here because sorry about that. The reason
dropped
why,
out.
Yeah, I dropped out for a second there because fucking computer restarted on me for some odd reason. I think it might be because I had my phone plugged in here into my computer at the same time while this stream was going. And now I completely lost all the freaking chat comments that I had saved up for this debate. Damn it. Okay, so let me just try to get caught up here on what it said in the chat to okay. Sorry, 1 second here. Okay. I guess I'll address this next by common sense guy. You have an appeal process. So even under a false flagging campaign, you can and people do get their channels back. I mean, what do you have to say about that, Rin?
Well, the YouTube lawyer talked about this, about how people how YouTube, okay, you can get censored for just about anything. And when it comes to the appeal process, people don't thoroughly read it. YouTube has something, a clause that says something like if you appeal your video, and you can think that you got a false flag, but the next time you could appeal would be 60 days later. So it's kind of like if somebody is targeting your channel and they got rid of, if they are, trying to get you shut down, you don't want to readily use that's appeal because it would take 60 days until you could appeal another video. And so if you're being targeted, it could lead to your channel being taken down.
Yeah, they also have trusted flaggers. I've had friends who have dealt with this exact issue, and that's kind of the point. What this guy's trying to say is there is an appeal process. There are trusted flaggers who are human beings and do understand the difference between satire, and that's why Creationist Cat got his video back. It's why Kraut got his channel back. It's why a lot of these people get their channels back, is because it is understood once a human looks at it that it is a mistake. However, when you have, again, you say that there isn't, that you want proof of Ralph, go watch the heel stream. This is not satire. He has alt-writers on talking about how the Holocaust wasn't real, and then them sending jokes and comments about Jews getting murdered. This is they have every right not to host that. It's not the company's decision. It's not the government's decision on who gets to be on the platform that this company is providing for free. It's simple.
Yeah, but I mean, you just said that you just acknowledged that they were telling edgy jokes in the chat. So it's kind of like you are agreeing that people should be punished over jokes.
No, I'm saying that it's not punished. It's YouTube has a right to say, we don't want Nazis joking about Jews being murdered. That's okay. That's their decision. There's a difference between somebody mocking. Again, I have talked to you about this. The difference between somebody like Dave Chappelle or Mel Brooks and what people like Ralph and people like the alt-right do, right, is that the jokes that Chappelle and Mel Brooks are saying are the butt of the joke is the racist. The joke in Ralph's situation is the Jew. There's a huge difference, and a company has a right to say we don't want that.
So jokes you don't like should be censored.
If I was running YouTube, I'd do the same thing. Yeah, of course. It's not like the government silencing them. It's a company. Again, I don't think you're understanding that the platform is not owned by the government. It's not a public space. It is owned by Alphabet. Alphabet, at the end of the day, is the one providing everything. So it is not up to the government. It is not up to you. It is not up to me. I don't like their terms of service either. I think their flagging system is also flawed. But it does not mean that they don't have a right to say what can and cannot be on their platform.
And what I'm saying is that we should be somewhere. I didn't actually specify YouTuber. I didn't say we have a right to be on YouTube. I said that we would like to be somewhere where we could be as edgy as we want without having to worry about some people, some lynch mob trying to get rid of us.
Well, it's not a lynch mob. That's being hyperbolic, right? It's people complaining, and people have the right to complain. And a company has the right to listen or not to listen.
Okay, if I may continue on with the chat here. Now we are going to get on with Marianne and Kappa Kitty's chats here. She says, first of all, freedom of association and freedom of speech go together. You can't have one without the other.
Well, this is where I bring
Hello?
gofustra.eu edu, which talks about the heckler's veto and the spirits and the concepts of a heckler's veto, how people want a new deal over the internet to protest unpopular speech.
Yeah, again, you're mischaracterizing that entire journal article. I read the whole thing, and that is not what it's saying. What it's saying is that the heckler, and this is just somebody's opinion. This isn't case law. This is it. I mean, you can read the conclusion. That this is
Yeah, this is a discussion that's going on because people are tired of being censored and people want more free speech.
no. Some people complain about being censored, and in their cases, they're not being censored. They are being kicked off of a platform, but they can go to Gap. They can go to Stream.me. Those are viable options. Therefore, they do have an option.
Oh, wait, let him.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
she can go ahead. But again, this is the whole thing. If you actually read the article, the whole thing, because I did, the argument that they're arguing is that mass media is sufficient to meet the state action for the First Amendment, right? Congress and FCC have granted broadcasters, cablecasters, and other media outlets. So what it's saying is that you want an FCC on YouTube. That's what this is arguing. This is arguing for an FCC. And can you scream nigger on ABC? No, you can't. Why? Because the FCC will fine you. This exact article is arguing for censorship.
No, it's not. She didn't read the article because the article brought up many interesting things. Like it brought up the case of Reno versus American Civil Liberties Union, which is a United States Supreme Court case in which the courts unanimously ruled that the anti-decency provisions of the 1996 Communication Decency Act violated the First Amendment's guarantee of freedom of speech. Two justices concurred in parts and dissented in parts to the decision. This is the first major Supreme Court ruling. This is the first major Supreme Court's ruling on the regulation of materials distributed via the internet, and the article mentioned that it brought up Reno versus the ACLU because it's trying to expand free speech. They're not trying to hinder it. That's the reason they brought up the New Deal.
I read it. I am going to respond because I read that verbatim. They're saying that there should be an FCC have granted broadcasters. That's what it's saying. It's saying that, again, that is her argument, but her argument doesn't flush out because in the end of the day, people like broadcasters and cablecasters have a moderator.
All right. So I kind of want to ask a question in order to forward this debate. This is more directed to Rin, but both of you can answer this if you'd like. Do you believe in an Internet Bill of Rights?
Yes.
Actually, I don't really care either way, but I'd like her to expand what that means as opposed to just saying yes, because as I put into the side chat, all of the Bill of Rights that are talked about on the internet have nothing to do with freedom of speech. It has everything to do with privacy and your data being sold to third-party companies.
Also, I just realized that I lost all the internet. I also want to say that I lost all the internet articles that you guys had provided. If you want to provide the internet links,
I got them.
Provide them in the group chat. That would be great, please.
They are in the. I put them. I don't know if you lost your group chat. Hold on.
No, I did not lose my. Well, okay, I got out, then I got back in. But the reason why I lost all this is because I had lost connection and I did not save my WordPad right here that had all the links.
There you go.
All right. So that is great. Thank you, guys. So anyway, continue with the addressing the whole question of do you believe in an Internet Bill of Rights?
Yeah. So I just want her to flesh out what she means by that because every other person discussing this has nothing to do with freedom of speech. It has to do with privacy. That's what it's talking about, net neutrality essentially, and it's talking about the right for your information not to be sold to third-party companies. That's what the Internet Bill of Rights is, if you look it up on the internet.
Yeah, and I've heard about it. I'm not gonna lie, I've heard about this because of Stick Sextonhammer, because Stick Sextonhammer also has a problem with, censorship and not being able to say whatever he wants. So he brought up the Internet Bill of Rights to he mentioned something about having more free speech, but it's over the internet.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so you're just saying that companies should be forced by the government to platform people. That's what.
Well, you seem to think that companies should be socially pressured by internet activists to deplatform people.
Yeah,
Wait.
that's fine.
I kind of want to hear Rin address that question like directly. Do you think that that the government should be forcing private internet websites to platform people, Rin?
No. I believe that we should have some. I'm not saying this should happen or that should happen. I'm not necessarily saying this should be the course we go through or that should be the course we go through. What I am saying though is that we should be able to be some place where we don't have to worry about activists getting us censored. It
All right.
doesn't have to be YouTube. It doesn't have to be Twitter. It doesn't need to be Facebook. I am more than happy to just stay streaming me or stay here or stay there. I don't need to be in some big platform, but we just want to be left alone.
Okay, so let that go on record. No, Rin Michaelis does not believe in the government forcing private internet websites to platform people. But then that kind of ultimately makes me ask the question, why are we having this debate then? I mean, ultimately, I think that's something that Neil also agrees, is that the government should not force internet websites to platform people. And if I may, like, put in my 2 cents, I agree that the government should not be forcing internet websites to do that as well. So
He seems to just be mad because I've defended Ralph's freedom of speech, and that's it. That seems to be what it's all about. If I've defended, Michael Rowlands, nobody said anything about that. I defended Kevin Logan, nobody said anything to me about that. I've defended Bering, no complaints. But as soon as I defend Ralph, all hell breaks loose.
okay. So I heard Neil say there earlier that he does not disagree with the idea of putting social pressures, like individuals, like as a group, like as a team, putting pressures on YouTube to not be censoring people.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that as well. I mean, I guess the ultimate question here is whether or not, by principle, YouTube should be kicking Ralph off of YouTube.
I have no problem if the company decides they want to have him on.
Okay, the question is, do you think he should have been kicked off? Do you think there's legitimate reason to kick him off?
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with free speech. It's not what he said; it's what he does. Right? If you go into his Discord, it's called Spike Club. He likes to say that it's a public, but it's not. Try to get a link. He only spams a short-term link in his kill streams, so that a very select few get in. Inside there, just the other day, people were joking about it on Kumite today too. If you go into the Spike Club, they literally for fun dox each other and make fun of each other's fat girlfriends. They're actively doing stuff that violates TOS. It has nothing to do with speech. It has everything to do with harassment. It has everything to do with raiding. It has everything to do with trolling. And at the end of the day, I don't really have a problem with trolling. I don't have a really problem with raiding. But when people like Crouten T has his family's number, his mom's address and name and number posted into the chat over and over again, I have no problem with the company saying, yeah, we don't want that.
So this is quite the roundabout, indirect way of us getting to the bottom of the issue. Like, we all agree that the government should not be forcing websites to be keeping people on their platforms, on their websites. But this just seems to come down to a difference of opinion when it comes to Ralph. Now, on that issue right there, you mentioned like his followers and people on his Discord server, they keep on doxing each other. My question is, does Ralph do that himself?
Oh, he's been found guilty. I mean, this is not like, this is the thing is, Rin has told me she just recently started watching Ralph. Ralph, he's been on the internet for a really long time, right? He's been found in private chat groups with other people doxing other people. So yes, Ralph has been found guilty. You can go look up the logs on the internet yourself. I don't have them on hand, but they're not that hard to find.
Even Ralph has doxed people.
Yes.
So basically, he's like AIU in that sense, then.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
and he also encourages people.
Well, that kind of changes my opinion on the whole hashtag Wall Street Journal kills kids situation. Rin, is there anything that you have to say regarding Ralph doxing people?
I haven't seen any of that. Nobody has really provided any evidence of it.
All right, so I guess we'll segue onto Ralph and looking at the evidence and his doxing.
Let's see if I can find it out here. Let me see.
All right.
I've got a bunch of stuff if you want it.
And also, I'd like to add another thing, and that is screenshots can be doxered.
Yeah, I took these. So unless you're accusing me personally of making shit up, then we have nowhere to go. So you can either take what I have on good faith, because that's a shit argument. Then any evidence I give you can be doctored. Any evidence.
Well, I have
here's what I have to say. Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry, Rin, go on. I should not be trying to engage in the debate myself.
I have proven on my YouTube channel how easy it is to doctor screenshots. Like I've demonstrated it because I doctored or fade a DM conversation between me and V, and I posted it on YouTube to demonstrate just how easy it is.
Yeah, but that doesn't. Okay, so then this is a pointless conversation, because anything I show you, you can just say, well, that's fake. Right? So what's the point of me even giving you evidence? You're saying, give me evidence. And then when you say, well, I don't want that evidence, how about the logs from his IRC chat? Would that work? Stuff that even he's admitted that is real?
Okay, slow down a bit, Neil. I'll let Rin address what you said so far.
I mean, it's kind of like when it comes to screenshots, anything can be faked. I mean, because I've demonstrated it on my YouTube channel. If you go to my videos, I made a video which has a fake conversation between me and V, and I showed it to my subscribers just to demonstrate just how easy and simple it is, because it's ridiculously easy.
Okay, how about archived? That is archived.
I'll accept an archive.
There you go. Then this is him and another guy talking about doxing Gamergate, people who are against Gamergate.
Should I do you want me to share this in the description below?
Sure.
Okay.
But, and here's the other thing. It's in an article. Here's a Medium article talking about how somebody made their mind after reading this stuff.
I don't know how much I would trust Medium.com, because I know that they have made some rather fallacious claims about the gender spectrum.
Oh yeah, well, Medium
feelings.
Oh no, I totally agree. Medium allows people, pretty much anybody, to post, right? I'm not saying. All I'm saying is this is some. I'm not saying that it's a reliable source necessarily, but the archive. This is just well-known stuff. This is nothing new. This is his chat logs getting leaked from other people that were in these chats because they didn't like Ralph's behavior. Yeah, bullying Tanis from Tech Raptor. Here we go. There's a huge long thing about it. They went after Brianna Wu, going after 8chan, a guy named Acid Man on there. Mock suicide charity. His wife going after people. Then making money off of making fake drama. Promoting friends, fame seeking for attention seeking. Insulting Ian Miles Chong. Mocks rape. Making fun of the... I don't care about that. Oh, somebody advocating the doxing of Jennifer Medina. Stalking Cult of Vivian, one a Gamergate supporter. Ethan Ralph wants Gamergate to burn down. I mean, this thing, harassing Liana Kurzner. Ethan Ralph talking about future targets.
A guy named El Peo Peru in the chat says Ralph Retort.
Yeah, the Ralph Retort. Yeah. This is what I mean when you're being used as a meat shield for somebody who regularly does shit that nobody would accept. Even the most extreme ANCAP or libertarian would say, yeah, this violates the NAP.
Yeah, and I do have some ANCAP followers, by the way. In fact, Marianne ANCAP Kitty is one of them.
I've been a lifelong libertarian member.
Okay. Rin?
What did you want me to answer?
How about any
I
of
did
them?
not know if you had anything to say in response or anything like that.
I mean, I could send this archive to Ralph and ask him if he wants to explain it. But I like to get both sides of the story before jumping to a conclusion.
All right. Well, then I would encourage you by all means to do that.
Yeah. Again, this isn't new stuff. This isn't something that somebody dug up 6 months ago. This is stuff that's been out for a long time. Ethan has a reputation on the internet for doxing people, for having friends that are doxers. He says straight up on his multiple times on the kill stream, I don't care about doxing.
Yeah, but right now I am going mostly by your claims, and that's pretty much it. And so because I'm mostly going by your claims, I would love to get, his side of the story and have him a chance to explain himself.
All right. Well, nobody's asking anybody to come to any definite final conclusions regarding this story. So whatever happens after this stream, do your work after the stream. Like, anyway, what was I about to say? Damn it. Regarding like a hashtag Wall Street Journal kills kids. I mean, I still think that the money should not have really been returned. I mean, ultimately, it might have come from immoral people, like people that go beyond just alt-right neo-Nazism, but go to the area of doxing. But still, it could have used that money to help cure those kids of their cancer rather than refunding it to the pieces of shit.
Can I actually make a rebuttal to that? It's a pretty easy rebuttal. I've worked in nonprofits before, right? If say, do you know how much money St. Jude's is one of the largest charities in the world, right? They get $2 million per day. And a lot of that comes from big donors, not small donations. And you might think 26,000, that's a lot of money, right? But do you know the Wall Street Journal alone gives $2 million a year to St. Jude's? So say they accepted the money from Ralph. What then happens? In fact, they're not even taking the money from Ralph. They're taking it from YouTube because YouTube is the middleman in this situation. If they accept this money and a donor sees this, or even the Wall Street Journal does an article and says, you know what, we're pulling our money out. Those kids are now losing $174,000.
Can I respond to that?
By all means, Ren.
Okay, I presented this idea to Christiosity, and even Christiosity seems to like this idea where Ralph could donate the money, but he would just have to do it anonymously. So what if the Wall Street Journal were to just get an anonymous donation that is not connected to Ralph? They just got the money, but nothing to tie it to Ralph specifically.
But no, that does okay. I'm not following you here, but my point is that they did a public stream where they raised money and did jokes like, we're going to Holocaust the cancer out of the kids. Right?
Yeah, but Christiosity like the idea of them fingering guts away for it to be anonymous.
Okay, now.
Let me finish. Let me finish. What happens if a Jewish donor sees this shit and says, you know what, I'm taking my $5 million donation and I'm going to give it to another cancer charity? Again, at the end of the day, the nonprofit has a responsibility to make sure they get as much money as possible. They will lose money if they don't reject this money. And $2 million a day is what this nonprofit raises. So are they going to take the 26,000 and lose it? Or are they going to, again, I'm not disagreeing with you that it's shitty they didn't take money, but I understand why they did it. It's not always just, it's sometimes what's good for the company or good for the nonprofit is more important than doing something just out of mere principle. And sometimes principle is more of a personal thing than a company thing or an organizational thing.
So you're against anonymous donations?
I didn't say that. If Ralph would have donated it anonymously, that would have been fine. All those people can still take their refunds and give it back to the St. Jude's. Nobody's stopping them.
Just they would have to like go directly to the St. Jude's website or something like that.
Yeah, they could go directly to the St. Jude's website. Like Ralph still could raise attention to St. Jude's, but why can't they just go to the website directly? And Ralph still, gave it attention.
Well,
but Ralph didn't have the money. Understand that YouTube was the medium, and that's why it was refunded. And I agree with you. I think they all should take their money that they got refunded and go to St. Jude's website and directly donate. That's wonderful. I agree.
If they truly believed in saving kids with cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, then how are you disagreeing with me? You're not actually disagreeing with me. You just agreed with me.
No, first off, I wasn't clear on what you were saying. And secondly, that's exactly what I said to Ralph and his fans. So I'm not disagreeing with you. That's not really a point. A point would be like that money, that 26,000 was raised through YouTube. That money was refunded. They could still make those donations.
Yeah, but this goes back into like this Wall Street Journal piece. Because the Wall Street Journal piece even acknowledged that YouTube wanted to send hateful super chats to charity. But the moment when people saying, oh, okay, we're going to do a hill stream, they want to give it back to the donators, people who are making the donations. So it's quite weird that when you look at BuzzFeed or the Wall Street Journal, they are saying we're going to send all hateful super chats to charity just to do like a 180 and go, well, we're going to refund it right back to you. It doesn't really make any sense.
I tend to agree with you. That's hypocritical. But the point is, the difference between those two things is they're taking hate speech and they're giving it to specific organizations that have already accepted the money. So say it's like, and again, I don't like it. I don't think it's a very good system. I think they should just refund all of them. I tend to agree with you. But the difference there is that St. Jude's refused the money. It wasn't the charities. The other charities in question are accepting the money. They know it's coming from hate speech. But the point is that they're fighting against hate speech, or that's what their organization is geared towards. So they're taking the money knowing that the money is coming from hate speech, right? St. Jude's saw what they were saying and were actually aware of it before even the Wall Street Journal article was even published. They had already rejected the money before the Wall Street Journal article came out.
By the way, I want to give a shout out to El Payo, Peru. That link that you sent in the chat just now, GoFundMe.com/final solution to cancer. It's not popping up for me, so I do not know if you want to send a new link or something, but yeah. Anyway, so wow, this has kind of been a wild stream, a lot wilder than I thought it would be, in all honesty.
Yeah, I was to say it's a little bit more interesting than I thought it was going to be, but yeah, no, well.
Yeah, I mean, we're not quite done, but I just thought I'd give my commentary so far. I don't know if we kind of want to segue on back to the whole private property rights, freedom of association, and freedom of speech thing, or we just wanted to continue on with the Ralph Retort thing.
Well, like I said, I don't. The freedom of speech is what I thought we were going to talk about, and it always turns it back into Ralph, and that was my point that I was making towards Rin, which this isn't a freedom of speech issue when it comes to Ralph. And when it comes to Ralph, he violates stuff all the time. He flagrantly does it. He has other platforms to go to. So if we want to talk about how much of a shitbag Ralph is, okay, that's fine. We can do that. But if we want to talk about freedom of speech and freedom of association, I'm more than welcome. I'd be fine with that too.
All right, if I may, like, intervene and ask Rin a direct question. Rin, if Ralph really did commit doxing, do you think that he should be punished by being kicked off of his speech platforms like YouTube, for example?
Yes, sure. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Because I mean, that's against the law. I mean, there are actually laws against the doxing. It's a criminal act.
Well, it depends on the state. Doxing's not necessarily legal.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have an actual term called doxing in law, but like still, like there was an article that I provided on a past video where I gone talking about the loudmouth reviews versus bearing drama. Provided an article there talking about how it is illegal to dox. You know.
Yeah, no,
actually, I did provide, like, during this debates between us, I actually did provide a link, an article, and I went to like a legal service to see if doxing is against the law, and it does say that it could be seen as a criminal act of intimidation. So yes, depending on what they did, like if they revealed a person's address and phone number, it could be seen as going against privacy laws and a criminal act of intimidation. So yes, it could be seen as a criminal act.
yeah, again, you're right. It could be, and that's what the problem with that too is what do you do with anonymous people with VPNs, right? Who's going to get arrested when it's some kid in Brazil with a VPN? Is the local police going to go arrest him?
And this is the problem. You moved the goalpost. First, you're saying Ralph. It seems now you're going from Ralph.
I'm saying in general. I'm saying in general. I'm saying in general. Okay. What happened? Yeah.
Rin, address it now.
Well, I mean, I don't know what you're going to do with a person from another country, but it's kind of like if you're saying Ralph, the person, then yes, he could get punished. But if you're saying some person in Brazil, then he's not even in the United States. How are you going to punish a person from a foreign country?
Well, here's the other thing. I will actually take your criticism a little bit there from earlier. Let's say somebody in the U.S., even within the U.S., and it's somebody from one state to another. Say it's Ralph, right? And Ralph is in, I think, North Carolina. And say he did something to, say, one of the people who harassed, which is Brianna Wu. I'm not saying this happened. Let's just say hypothetical, right? Person B in Massachusetts. Now you're talking about something that goes across state lines even. And even in that situation, somebody from North Carolina, a sheriff or a DA, cannot prosecute somebody in Massachusetts. So even within the United States, you still have that same problem. And you still go into the problem with VPNs. If they're using a VPN, they're impossible to trace. I agree with you that these people should get in trouble, but how do you get them in trouble? It's not as simple as saying just go to the police. You've even told me you had problems with that. It's not as simple as just going to the police, because at the end of the day, A, the DA may not care. B, there may not be a law regarding it. And C, if they're in another state, it becomes a federal issue. And do you think the FBI is really going to spend time and resources prosecuting somebody for calling them a faggot online?
Well, when it comes to my case, I was harassed over the internet for 2 years, and this happened on from 2010 to 2012. I went to the police, and they say that when you look at the law of my particular states, they couldn't do anything. And the reason why my particular states couldn't do anything is because my address wasn't out there, and because my name and address wasn't out there in 2010, there was nothing that they could do about it. So what happens is I took care of the matter all on my own, because it's kind of like people can be creative, people can be inventive, people can learn how to solve their own problems. And given that the police couldn't help me, I helped myself.
Yeah, and good for you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying this kind of shows how it can be murky, right? It's not
right.
Yeah.
It can be murky, and if I may address the chat some more, you say it can be murky, and to expand on that, El Peo Peru says it's gray territory, unsettled law. He says doxing can be like journalism, in my opinion, but he also says not as a defense, journalism should be illegal. Wait a minute, wait.
What? Yeah, no, I get what he's saying. He might just be making a joke, but I actually kind of I agree with him. Revealing somebody's identity isn't always like we have to define doxing, right? Doxing is the malicious spreading around of personal information in order for harassment. It's not the same as a journalist like exposing somebody's identity necessarily, right? A doxer, what they're going to do is go on Baphomet or something like Baphomet, and what they're going to do is release your name, your number, your address, your all that stuff, your social security number, your credit card number, so that other people can use it to harass you. That's doxing in the old school sense, right?
All right. By the way, is El Peo Peru like a friend of yours?
I have no idea who he is. Yeah, no.
Okay. Thought I'd ask. Also, Nick, some more things in the chat. Q says, like you go mentioning of how it would be hard to get somebody from Brazil arrested for doxing or anything else like that. Some guy called Q_ says jurisdiction is the problem with punishing doxing, and different states are not equipped with punishing doxing.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why you have a term of service on a platform, right? Because while the states aren't equipped to do it, the platform can deal with it on their own. The platform can say, yeah, we don't want doxers because it hurts our business. And that's what it always comes down to me is what is good for the business when it comes to the decisions made by the business. So they have a right to say, this is, again, it's the same thing. Somebody, a homeless guy's peeing on the outside of the building, right? They have every right to tell that guy to get off their property. And if they come back, it's trespassing. They can tell somebody who is abusive to other customers not to come back. That's basically what they're doing. They're telling an abusive customer not to come back.
All right.
But still, there's a difference because even though the states are ill-equipped to deal with doxing, doxing is still illegal, and that's a difference because doxing is a criminal act, like putting somebody's phone number and address out there. That's still a criminal act. And so, why on earth would I have a problem with a website kicking a person out for committing a criminal act? If a person is committing a criminal act, then yes, they should be deplatformed.
Well, but here's the thing. It's not a criminal act. That's what we've just been saying for the last 5 minutes. It depends on where you're at. And not only that, by that logic, you're also saying stuff like the white pages and the yellow pages and people search are criminal.
Well, there is a nuance to these things because, like you said, it is the malicious intent of spreading information in order to hurt somebody. That doesn't apply to the white pages because there's no malicious intent there.
What the people search is exactly what doxers use to get your information. If they've got your name, they find that they use people search.
Yeah, but if they're putting it on like Kiwi forums, you could tell if it's malicious versus if it's something that's just there for information. There's like a little gray area.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like I said, I get what you're saying when it's a malicious spreading, and I agree with you. But A, it's not necessarily illegal. And B, it's about just because something is illegal doesn't mean somebody can be prosecuted if they're outside of the jurisdiction, right? If I live in New Mexico, right? If I'm in New Mexico and I dox you, if there's no law against doxing in my state, I can't be prosecuted, and your state can't prosecute me because I don't live there.
But say if you two lived in the same state where doxing basically is illegal.
Yeah, then there you might have a case for that. You could go to the police. Yeah. But that's if you can find out who I am. You can't file a police report against somebody you don't know who it is.
say if like you two are in 2 different states, but both states essentially do criminalize doxing. Same
Yeah.
thing.
Well, no, that she might be able to. In that case, you might be able to file a police report in my state again if you know where I live. You see what I'm saying? It's all about what you know versus like you can't say, well, this random person using a VPN is harassing me. The police are just going to throw up their arms and going, what do you want us to do about it?
All right. El Peo Peru also says, main point I was making earlier is that people can dox maliciously with large platforms, and it doesn't really have the same social stigma if you're big enough to get away with it. He also says in another chat comment, I don't really like Cernovich, but he made an interesting point in a Tim Pool video a month or 2 ago. What is the difference between harassment and journalism, since nobody knows really?
I think it's intent. I think it depends. I think that journalists can harass.
I personally think that if the subject of doxing was originally anonymous and was wanting to keep his anonymity.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I can agree with you, Zach.
What?
I can agree with you, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably like the first debate that I've had to add in my 2 cents the most as of so far. So far, I've hosted like 4 debates on this stream. One was a group versus one guy, and then another one was on guns between Cold of Ham and BTK. Third one was on guns again, but between Lapis, aka the Effeminate Degenerate, and Two Plebs Talk News, and now this is my 4th one right here. So this has turned out to be interesting. I did not know if there was anything else that you guys had to say, or if you just want us to like get into closing statements right now, because I think this debate is kind of winding down.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind because I've got to pee. I've had like 6 shots of tequila.
What? Wait, what? You're debating this drunk or buzzed or something?
Oh, yeah, dude, my buddy's warned you guys. He's like, he's going to get fucked up halfway through. Well, and I have pretty high alcohol tolerance. Here, I'll do number 7 just for you.
Okay, you did not sound like you were like slurring and tripping over your words so bad, or at least as bad as I've seen Warcorp 666 do.
Well, I also heard of him. Yeah, I also have a big lip of chewing tobacco in too. So.
Oh, jeez. But anyway, so I guess we will get into closing statements. 5 minutes each. Let me get out my timer again, and then I guess we'll have like Rin go first. Considering the fact that she like had the first opening statement, but okay. Anyway, so Rin, you ready?
Sure, but I don't really have a closing statement.
All right. Well, just basically sum up your positions when it comes to Ralph, when it comes to freedom of association and internet censorship, etc.
Well,
like,
I mean,
stuff like that, stuff that comes to mind in that area.
I mean, I'm not defending Ralph as a person if he really is guilty.
Wait. I'll let you say that in your closing statement. 5 minutes. Go.
Yeah, I'm not really defending Ralph as a person if he is guilty of, doing any criminal activity like doxing, then yeah, he should get kicked off the platform. The thing is, a lot of us are affected by censorship. I'm affected by it because I cannot say everything I want. Like I do self-censor on YouTube. I self-censor on Twitter. I self-censor a lot. It's something that not just he has an issue with, it's something that many creators have an issue with. And I would like to say more of what I want. I don't need to be on YouTube or Twitter or whatnot. I would just like to be somewhere where I could express myself without having to worry about losing a website, without worrying about, I building up this small little audience just to lose it someday because somebody has a problem with one of the bigger users because they did something Lord only knows when, and they want revenge against that person.
That it?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, you had like 3.5 minutes left, but cancel that out. I have censors on. Okay, there we go. So anyway, Tizzy, aka Neil, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. 5 minutes. Go.
And this kind of comes full circle. A lot of this has to do with Ralph, and I've made from day one saying this is not a free speech issue. This is a platforming issue. Free speech is great. I love free speech, but private companies do not. You're not entitled to free speech through a company. You're entitled to free speech through your own self. Individuals have a right to say whatever they want, but a company doesn't have is not forced by the government to platform you to say it. When it comes down to platforming, there are alternative platforms. These people that make themselves out to be victims have already gone to them. There is Gab. When they say Gab got their domain pulled, they went and got another domain. It's nothing but advertising for these groups. They do not really care about the individuals actually being deplatformed because it only works in their own favor. At the end of the day, Alphabet has the right to do business as they seek. In the same way, again, as a Jewish bakery has a right to refuse to make a swastika-shaped cake, in the same right that a Christian baker has a right to refuse to make a individualized cake for a gay client, even though in that case, as I made a point, that person never denied them service at all. They, in fact, said to them that they could pick anything they wanted off the shelf, and they decided to sue instead of going to another baker. At the end of the day, Ralph has a long history of doxing people, harassing people. If you ever get into Spike Club, if you watch the Kill stream, you can actually maybe get one of the links and actually go into the Discord and actually see what they do behind the scenes. There's tons of evidence over 5 or 6 years of Ralph being a complete piece of shit. And again, this has nothing to do with freedom of speech. Doxing is not technically illegal. Doxing is dependent on where you live and the state laws and the city laws. It also talks about jurisdiction. This is the internet. It could be anyone from around the world doing it to you. And just because they're doing something that's illegal where you live does not mean that they can be prosecuted. So going to the police is not an answer. It is up to the platforms themselves to moderate it so that they can have a usable product. Because at the end of the day, you are the product. You are the eyeballs watching the ads. You are the person who is paying for YouTube Premium. And without moderation, their product would be useless. People would leave and go to other platforms.
You done?
No, I'm done.
Could I respond to that real quick?
They're closing arguments.
Dadgummit, Rin. I was asking if we wanted to get the closing statements. I mean, sorry, Rin. It's a little bit too late for that. Anyway, I mean, if we want to have another stream at some other point to actually address some of these things that we did not address, because there's some chat comments that I kind of ignored because we kind of segued from private property and freedom of association to talking about Ralph more specifically. But anyway, this has been kind of a bumpy, weird, and little bit off the rails debate that I have been moderating between these two lovely people. But still, for all of you who watch in the chat and participate, your comments, etc., Marion and Capikitty, El Peo Peru, and Common Sense Guy, I would like to thank you all. And I would also like to thank Neil and Rin Michaelis for participating in this. Thank you, Rin, for suggesting the idea of having a debate. I would like to do more of these debates.
Can I also mention Liberty Sanity Project? Everybody go subscribe to that stupid liberal.
Anyway, so to close out, Q_, he says dab on Gab. So
absolutely.
Anyway, I am your host and moderator, the Dark Conservatarian, and we will see you all later. God bless y'all. Have a good night.